All right. So today we are going to be talking about the quadratic equation. The quadratic equation is the thing that's on the screen right now. The x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Good news, you don't have to have it memorized. This is an equation that is given to you on your star notes, okay? While it may be given to you in your star notes, you are going to have to use it. And honestly, using it, it looks crazier than it actually is. It is the culmination of a couple of the skills that we've practiced over the couple of days here. When we look at this and I see those b's, I get it from my equation. X equals ax squared plus bx plus c, or y equals, excuse me. I've got the a right here, and that's the a, that's the first letter here. I've got the c here, and the c here. Now, I say that the parentheses go there because, in all honesty, you know how sometimes when you get those equations that have the minus x and such like that, when you have a minus like that, it turns into like a negative number, and when you put it inside the parentheses like that, it helps you to identify those negative numbers, okay? It's not going to be given to you in the parentheses like this, but these two equations here are the same thing. It's just this one's got the parentheses on it. Something else that y'all haven't seen necessarily before is this plus or minus symbol. That plus or minus doesn't just mean plus or minus. It means you have to solve it twice. You have to solve when it's plus, and then you have to solve it again when it's minus in order to be able to find both zeros. Because remember, when you have your graph and you have a parabola that crosses it, it will cross in two different places. One of those is going to be the plus, one of those is the minus. Also, we're solving for x, because I don't want you to forget that in a zero, the y value is 0. The x is actually going to be a number. So everything we're solving for is the x value for that 0, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like. Now, I'll tell you right now, me trying to write this on the screen is going to be messy, okay? So I'm gonna end up switching it to where I write it by hand today, and that's gonna go a lot more smoothly, right? So it says, label the numbers in the quadratic function as a, b, and c. Substitute a, b, and c into the quadratic equation. Solve the quadratic equation with a plus sign, that's one of the zeros. Solve it with a minus sign, that's the other zero. That's where that plus or minus comes in. Last but not least, you're gonna end up actually writing this as a set of parentheses, and those are gonna be your zeros. Let's go ahead and solve it. So, calculator time. So what's on my screen right now is my first example of x squared minus 8r minus 9 equals 0. When we label these, there's an invisible 1 in front of this x, and that's going to be my a. My b is the number in front of this x here. I know it says R, I gotta fix that. And then this minus 9 is C, and that's gonna be my C. So I go to write my equation, negative, and again, I put it in parentheses B, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C. All of this divided by 2a, which is 1. And that a is, again, it's all multiplied. So minus negative 8 turns into positive 8, plus or minus the square root of negative 8 squared is the same as 8 squared, which is 64. And if you're not sure about that, you can grab your calculator if you'd like. It's gonna take a second to turn on, but we can do that. On. Yeah, it's gonna take a second. You can just take my word for it, that 8 squared is 64, minus 4 times 1 times negative 9. Hang on, negative 4 times negative 9, that is positive 36. So I get negative 4 times negative 9. And that is positive 36. So plus 36. All of that gets divided by 2 times 1, which happens to be 2. Okay. From there, we solve what's inside the parentheses. 64 plus 36 is 100. So it's the square root of 100. Still with the plus or minus there. And all of that gets divided by 2. The square root of 100 is 10. So I get 8 plus or minus 10 divided by 2. 8 plus 10 is 18 divided by 2, which is 9. So my first set of zeros is 9, 0. 8 minus 10 is 2. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. So my second 0 is at 1, 0. And that is going to be my set of zeros for this equation. All right. So when I come back over here and it actually asks for my number, 9, 0, and 1, 0, those are going to be my zeros. So you see how I was able to plug those numbers in and be able to get the answers and be able to solve for it and such like that? That is going to be what you're expected to do today. Now, is it always that easy? No. It is going to have some moments where it does get a little bit more difficult. And those difficulties are going to come from equations that are set up just a little bit differently than what you just saw, where the plus sign or the minus sign are going to be in a little bit of a different place. Okay? That's going to be like on this screen here, where when you see, oh, sir, it's 2x squared minus 7x equals 30, well, it's not finding zeros now, is it? Oh, yes, it is actually. Yes, it is. That's going to take just a second to move the 30 around and then be able to solve for it. So once again, let's go ahead and grab my paper and let's get started. So right now the problem is 2x squared minus 7x equals 30. If I subtract 30 on both sides of the equal sign, I get 2x squared minus 7x minus 30 equals 0. Hey, now we can find our zeros. Once again, label it with A, B, and C. A happens to be 2. B happens to be negative 7. And C happens to be negative 30. Okay? Okay. And we can solve this, no problem. Negative b plus or minus the square roots of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all of that divided by 2a. All right, so from here, negative 7 turns into positive 7, so it's 7 plus or minus the square root of 7 squared is the same as negative 7 squared. It is 49. Now my calculator's on. I can actually show you that. I guess it's going to take a second. Oh, there we go. Yay. All right. So 7 squared is 49. And also negative 7 squared is also 49. I'm sorry, I need to put it in parentheses. Negative 7 squared. This is why we put it in parentheses, because when we put it in the calculator like that, based on PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, there's the parentheses, the exponent, then multiply. This would say 7 squared, make it negative. By putting it in parentheses, it says take negative 7 and square it. It is going to be the positive 49 here. Okay? Minus 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times negative 30 is going to be negative 240. So minus negative 240. You know, I've found a lot of times people forget that these are both minus, and when they see this minus already, they go, oh yeah, it's just 240, and they miss that it should be this negative. Negative 30 times 8 is negative 240, so be careful about that. From there, divide it by 2 times a, which is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. I apologize. All right, that would be square root of 49 plus 240, which would happen to be the square root of 289, which is divided by 4 with a 7 in front of it. So when I go to factor this, because I am going to have to factor that 289 out as much as possible, it cannot be divided by 2 because it is not an even number. I can tell you right now it's not divisible by 3. If you wanted to try it though, 289 divided by 3 is, yeah, it doesn't divide equally. So I'm gonna make a guess here about 289 being divided by 7, and let's see what happens. No, it's not 7. It's not 9, because 9 is a multiple of 3. So 289, I don't think it has any factors. So in this case, it would be 7 plus the square root of 289 over 4, and 7 minus the square root of 289 over 4. And that would be the answer to this one. Okay. Sir, can that be simplified? The answer to that is no. It cannot be simplified any more than it already is. Okay. So, what about the next question? Well, the next question, 2x squared minus 12x minus 5. Once again, that is going to be something that we're going to have to move those things from one side of the equal sign to the other side in order to be able to solve it, right? So let's go ahead and take a look. Let's go ahead and see what we got there. Okay? All right. So let's go ahead and begin writing that thing out. Give me a second to move those papers out of the way. Camera, there we go. So I get 2x squared equals negative 12x minus 5. When I add 12x on the left side and I add 12x on the right side, I get 2x squared plus 12x equals negative 5, where I can add 5 on both sides. 2x squared plus 12x plus 5 equals 0. Okay, now our goal is to be able to solve this, and that's going to take just a couple of seconds just now for us to do. Label A, label B, and label C. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c divided by 2 times a. Notice I'm using my parentheses just like I showed you at the beginning, because those parentheses help me isolate my variables. None of them are negative, but if they were, then negative would have been inside the parentheses. Negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 12 squared is 144 minus 4 times 2 is 8 times 5 is 40 minus 40 divided by 4. From there, negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 104 over 4. 104 has to be factored. 104, 2, and 52, another 2, and a 26, another 2, and a 13. Okay, a pair of 2's here can come out negative 12 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 2 times 13, 26, all divided by 4. Now here's where it gets just a little bit crazy. I can simplify this. Both negative 12 and 2 can reduce with 4. Okay? I can only reduce by a factor of 2. I have negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 26 divided by 2. This can't simplify out, so I get negative 6 plus the square root of 26 divided by 2 and 0. And I get negative 6 minus the square root of 26 divided by 2, 0. When you reduce like that, you have to reduce by the lowest common multiple for all of those numbers, or the lowest common denominator. Since there was a 2 in front here, this is divisible by 2, this is divisible by 2. Negative 12 divided by 2 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. There's still an invisible 1 here. And 4 divided by 2 is 2. Because this doesn't have another coefficient in front to divide by, I cannot divide by anything else there. Those are going to be your zeros for that question. Last but not least, I've got one more to do with y'all. And this one, I don't have to do any kind of crazy moving or anything like that. It's 2x squared minus 96 equals 0. Okay. A, where's B? There's no x thing in here. There's literally no x's here, so where's B? Well, see, when that happens, it's the same as saying 2x squared plus no x's minus 96 equals 0. 0 times any x here, whatever it is, would become 0 to where it would cancel out, and we wouldn't have anything here. So my A is 2, my B is 0, and my C is negative 96. Negative B, well, that's negative 0. So plus or minus the square root of 0 squared. Well, doesn't get us anything. Minus 4 times A times C divided by 2 times A. Another 2. Simplify. Negative 0 is gone. Plus or minus the square root of 0 squared is still 0 because 0 times 0 is 0. Minus, and that's a negative here. I forgot that negative. See how easy it is to forget it? That negative needed to be included here. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And negative 8 times 96 is going to be something that I probably could do in my head, but I'm not going to. Let's just do it. Negative 4 times 2 times negative 96 is going to be 768. So it's the square root of positive 768. All of that divided by 4. We can start factoring this 768 out. 2 and 768 divided by 2 is 384. Factor that 2 out there as well. So I divide by 2 again, and I get 192, 192, which factors out with another 2 to become 96, which factors out with another 2 to become 48, which factors out with another 2 to become 24, which factors out with another 2 to become 12, 2, 6, and 2, 3. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. All right, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4 2s that paired up. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times the square root of nothing with this 3 divided by 4. 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8 times 2 is 16. That is 16 times the square root of 3. Don't forget it's plus or minus 16 because that still is there. All we did was factor the 768. All that gets divided by 4. 16 and 4 can divide equally. I get a positive 4 times the square root of 3, 0. And I get a negative 4 times the square root of 3, 0 as my other one. Because all I have to do is say, okay, if this simplifies to be plus or minus the square root of 3 with a 4 in front of it, then positive 4 root 3 and negative root 3 would be able to be applied here. And that is going to be my zeros on this. And it would actually be what I would want to write as well. 4 times the square root of 3, 0. And negative 4 times the square root of 3, 0 as my other 0. And that's what you're doing today. That's how you use the quadratic equation to be able to solve for the zeros of this. Will it work for anyone? Yes. In a manner of speaking, yes. There are some things that you cannot take the square root of. For example, the square root of 144 is 12. The square root of negative 144 is not graphable. It's an imaginary number. We're not able to do that. Okay? We can take the square root of 0. The square root of 0 is 0. But we can't take the square root of a negative number. So if you end up with a negative number, your first check should be, did you put the right negative signs in there? Because if you did not put the right negative signs in there, you are going to need to fix that. And that is the most common mistake. You are more likely to have made a mistake with the negatives than you are to get a quadratic that you cannot find the answer to. Okay? On the worksheet that I gave you earlier today to work on, you are going to be looking at, let's see, how many of these don't have answers? All of them have answers. All of them have answers. Okay. Well, then in this case, you don't have to worry about that. I'll have to give you one tomorrow because you're doing this again tomorrow. That does have some unable to find an answer. All right. Otherwise, I'm going to have you begin on the worksheet. Good job.